Welcome to the Sarah Scoop Show. It's time to get the scoop with Sarah.
Hi, I'm Marcus Rosner. I'm an actor based in Canada. I star in the film Christmas with a Crown alongside the lovely Lisa
And that
Durupt.
would be me, also a Canadian actress, Lisa Durupt. Lovely to meet you. Christmas with a Crown is a story of a young lady who goes back home for Christmas, only to realize that the local Christmas festival that's been put on for years by her mom and the local town people is not being put on this year. And amongst her fight to put it on, she comes across this charming new person that has moved to town or come to town, which she later discovers is not just your everyday visitor. And I play Cassie, the woman who comes back to town,
And I play
the charming visitor.
the charming visitor, Nicholas.
Yeah.
And yeah, I basically am a young, not so young. I'm a prince who basically desires feeling a small town Christmas and a communal feel rather than the pomp and circumstance of the Christmases that I grew up with. What made me want to be a part of it? I mean, the people basically was the first thing. I got a call from somebody I know that was producing it. Actually, Michael Lazarevich, who plays. Oh my goodness, the names are escaping me right now. Who does he
I don't
play?
know, I'm just
Lisa?
impressed to pronounce his
Michael
last name
plays
right because I never knew how to pronounce it.
Arthur. He plays Arthur, my sidekick, more or less in the movie, and he also produced the movie. And he called me out of the blue one day and said that they were doing this project in Edmonton, where I happen to be from. And by that point, Lisa was attached, and yeah, I was excited to go home and shoot something in my hometown and work with Michael, and that was kind of my entryway into the film.
Yeah, and for myself, I work in Alberta a fair bit, and I had been looking to get into producing. That had been something I've been trying to cultivate for a while. And I was working on a show with actually somebody that both Marcus and I had worked with and adore, Rachel Lee Cook, and we were talking about it. And just by way of right place, right time, a camera guy overheard me, a gentleman by the name of Brett, and he said, "You got to talk to my buddy in Edmonton. They're trying to get this film off the ground, and it's a Christmas movie, and it's probably right up your alley based on the history of things that you've done." And so I went up to the Whistler Film Festival. I guess it would have been just before Christmas this past year, it'd be a year ago now, and I met with Dylan, the director, and Andrew, his producing partner, and over evening of a lot of drinking, we came up with the idea that we were going to do this. And so it just kind of very naturally all came together. And then when they said Marcus was involved, I mean, I heard really great things about him. We have a lot of mutual friends. And so it just seemed like a no brainer. And yeah, I was excited to see what we could do in a very short time span in Edmonton. For this one in particular, I think it was interesting to be part of it that way because I've worked with people who have been in that situation, and you don't realize how much extra work it is. I mean, you hold yourself to a certain standard when it comes to acting, but then to have the idea that you then have to hold that same standard when it comes to producing. I think Marcus and I were very fortunate that the team that was around us took a lot of that pressure off and did a lot for us and really let us learn from them as opposed to just kind of jumping in and expecting us to do the exact same things they would be doing on top of the acting thing. So for me personally, I won't speak for Marcus, but on me personally, it was a gentle way to get into producing as opposed to being thrown into the fire and expected to hold both to the same level. They were all very kind and very supportive, and they were great about if you want to know this information or if you don't. And I mean, Marcus and I are both very strong willed. So I think we both had very strong opinions about things, and they were pretty good about listening and diffusing the things that maybe they didn't need, but at the same time, accepting the things that they agreed with. So it's a really nice entry into it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've done a lot of these films, Christmas and otherwise, and just having like the personal investment of being on the producing side and sort of at least having a seat at the table as far as creative control it made the entire experience more enjoyable and fulfilling. And yeah, like Lisa was saying, it was kind of like going into like producing school with like training wheels where before with the shooting, I learned a lot in like the week or two up to that in the pre-production, and then I've learned a lot after we wrapped. But they did a really good job of just making sure we weren't dealing with anything outside of the acting while we were actually shooting. I didn't do a ton of, I mean, I was helping find some extras and, brainstorming with locations and stuff just because I'm
That's
a
a
local
big,
from there. But
big
other
job,
than that,
give yourself some credit. That's a very big job.
I mean,
I did none of
it was
that.
literally like, it was literally like doing a scene, and then they'd be like, "Oh no, we lost this location. Where else?" And I'd be like, "Have you tried this, and that? Okay, go try that. All right, I'll be over here." Yeah, it was. It was a learning experience and has been since. But I would do this every time if I had the opportunity to actually be on this level of investment. So, yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. I'll be honest, like I've seen some of these royalty storylines play out in these films before, and I always thought, oh, that's a little too whimsical for me. Like I don't know if I'd be into that kind of thing. But playing it was a joy. Like having the switching back and forth between the two accents and what Michael was doing with Arthur, it just made for a really fun shoot. And then when I actually had a chance to see the film, it just seems like such a grounded version of that rather than this fairy tale prince that sort of comes from nowhere into this like fairy tale world. I don't know. I just really like the way we executed it, the way the guys edited it, and it just feels like a very grounded, plausible version of some prince coming from a made up land, and I really liked it. So
I agree with him. It's hard to go after you, Marcus, because you kind of steal all the good points. I agree with him completely. I think it was for me that idea, like he said, of it not being. It is a whimsical idea, a very magical Christmas story, which is, this time of year, that's what people want, and that's why networks succeed in the way they do with this type of shows. But there is a fine balance between how do you make it realistic, because there are a lot of those damsel in distress and the man saves her and this and that. And so I wanted to be careful that she wasn't just that. She just didn't need saving. And so I felt like the way that, again, yeah, he's right. The way they edited it and the way that they, Dylan directed it made it plausible and made it grounded and made it realistic in the sense that, it actually could happen. It'd be crazy, but it could happen, as opposed to, you're one glass of wine and going like, yeah, right. So that was kind of a nice balance that I thought as a group we all struck and decided pretty early on. Whether or not we talked about it, I don't even know, but we just kind of all were on the same page right away, which was really nice.
yeah, and just to add to that, Lisa actually was like, we did a table read and she completely pointed out a bunch of things along the way that it just wasn't giving her character enough agency as the lead of the film. And I think that was honestly a big turning point for just the quality of the
I
film
think
overall.
that's a nice way of saying Lisa was a bit of a diva, but I nailed it. So just kidding.
Lisa saw a problem and fixed it in that regard, and it was totally necessary and
It was a
appreciated.
group effort, but thanks. Probably should have. I feel like a smarter actors would have done that. I didn't. I mean, I guess you think about it, but I just personally have never been one of those people that feels like they have to or channel someone, just because I just always think the best thing you can do is kind of put your own spin on it. Yes, obviously I'm very aware of her. At the time, it's not really something that entered my mind until we were done. And then it was kind of one of those moments going, oh yeah, that. So I probably should have. And if we could redo, maybe, but at the same time, with acting, you kind of just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. So we just went with what worked.
It's funny having watched. I just recently watched it. I think I watched it 5 days ago or something with my mom and my fiance. And having watched it, I think in hindsight, my favorite memory was the skating scene. One, because I invited a whole bunch of friends and family to come be all the extras for it. Two, because it was miserable at the time. We shot till 3 a.m. and I think it was almost minus 40 degrees Celsius. It was unbelievably cold. And I'm from there. Like that was cold. And I remember thinking the entire time that it was not working at all because my face couldn't move. Lisa was frozen. We were just totally both frozen. Like, I mean, like physically.
Couldn't talk by the end.
Yeah, like we were unable to even get words out, it felt like. And then I watched it, and it's my favorite scene in the movie. And so just that context in watching it now makes it a really fun memory.
Yeah. And I would have to say it's a tie with the skating for sure. But another one that was a lot of fun was actually the Christmas market. And it was just a scenario where, it's these kind of movies, you've got a whole group of people that are in it because they want to be in it in terms of the crew and the cast and everything. And so the night we were shooting, we just didn't have as many extras as we had hoped for just different circumstances. It was cold, all of that stuff. And so the crew was fantastic about filling in when they had to. And at one point I made a joke as I'm waiting for them to start shooting, saying, "Oh, you should get Marcus to be one of the townspeople." And then the camera guy's like, "Psst, Lisa, look." And sure enough, it was Marcus with a hood up, like doing a walk by so that we could fill in more extras. Like, it just was such a collaborative effort that I couldn't help but laugh, because you felt like you were back in, film or theater school, where you kind of just did what you need to do to make it work. And it turned out so fantastic and so fun because of that. And then, And also the guy who played my dad was a pretty funny cat. He would come up with his one-liners, but he didn't quite realize sometimes that the camera was rolling. So you'd have to be like, "Shh, can't say that on camera." So he was a great guy, but it was just hilarious little moments like that I think the Winter Festival itself had some pretty epic moments throughout the night that I'm pretty sure not PG and cannot be on camera, but it was pretty good.
When we were watching it 5 days ago, and that festival scene, it's a big wide shot, a bunch of extras walking through. I paused it. I was like, "There I am." I was like,
with your big hood
my
on.
own winter jacket, my hood up. I was like, "I'm in there." And then, of course, I come waltzing in seconds after in the red royal thing. No, it was so fun. Yeah. And like Lisa was saying, we had like cameramen walking through scenes. Remember at one point we started a scene, and I was like, "Oh, nobody's manning that camera that's pointed at us," only to realize that one of the people that was being an extra in the scene walked right past me and then went behind the camera and started working the camera just to get an extra body in the frame in that shot. And I was like, "Wow, what are we doing here? It's awesome."
It's so good. Yeah.
And you're looking around at the other people in the scene, like, if you're doing that, who's doing? Oh, never mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, Terrell was a big get for us. Like, she is obviously a mainstay in this whole world of these kinds of films, and she just crushes every scene that she's in any project that she's in. And I've worked with Terrell on like 4 of these movies. She's played everyone from my mom before this one to like my love interest's mom to somebody's aunt. And we were really lucky and happy to get Terrell, and she makes the perfect queen.
And I had never worked with Terrell, and I have seen her so many times around Vancouver. And even a couple years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter and I did some reading for casting, she came in and I just was like, I couldn't help myself. I was like, "I love you." She's like, "Nice to meet you too." And so I had never actually worked with her. So I was just so excited that she said yes because of that. I was way more excited, I'm sure, than she. For her, it's probably just like, "Great, thanks, guys." But I was just like, couldn't even breathe. I was like, "It's Terrell." So yeah, I was very excited to get her because I had never worked with her before. So I was super thrilled about that.
I've actually got a great Terrell story real quick. We ran into each other like 2 years ago at a wardrobe fitting when we were both about to work on another movie, and I had just seen Toy Story 4 with my fiance, and I was raving about it. I was like, "It's amazing." And she has a young daughter, and I was like, "You have to take your daughter. It's incredible." She's like, "I can't, Marcus. I can't. It'll make me cry. I just know it." She's like, "But can you describe it to me?" And I was like, What do you mean?" She's like, "Tell me what happens. I want to know what happens, but I don't want to see it." I was like, "You want me to describe the plot of Toy Story 4 to you?
Yeah.
You're in this change room?" And she's like, "Yeah, please." And so I just went through the movie describing it, and by the end of me describing it, she was crying. Like, she's just got the biggest heart in the world.
Oh gosh, she's so funny too. For such a little thing, she is so damn funny. You'll love her. Gazebo it's very exciting. It was amazing. It was beautiful. It was all of that. But by the time the movie magic, by the time we got to the gazebo, it was the very last shot I think for myself, and it was now 7 in the morning and the sun had come up. So what they did in post was amazing, because we're in this gazebo that if you could see, I mean, the point of view that they show is one way, but if you could turn the cameras around and go the other way, it was a very busy street, and it was now rush hour at 7:30 in the morning, and they are racing to get that shot. And it's like this most magical moment. And in between, the two of us were going back to this vehicle that was running, that we're like, I look over and Marcus is like sleeping. Like, I was like, okay, like, we're just trying to get to the end of it. So it was magical at about 7 p.m. at night when we walked on, and we're like, ooh, that's a gazebo. It looks gorgeous. We'd heard about it. And then at 7:30 in the morning, it was just one of those moments where you're like, let's just get this done and get to bed. And so I'm so glad the way it turned out, and the coloring they did and stuff in post was fantastic to make it look like it was nighttime and magical, because it definitely was bright and early and very busy outside.
Yeah, because just to be clear, like we shot through that night. When she said 7
And
a.m.,
overnight.
it was like we did all that festival stuff at the end, and that gazebo shot from basically 5 p.m. until 7 a.m. And it was just like, it was like the height of exhaustion, and it was also really cold that night. But in terms of the beauty, it was incredible. I mean, all that stuff that is in the whole festival. There's a giant mall in Edmonton called West Edmonton Mall, which for a long time hailed as like the biggest mall in the world. And I grew up like a block away from there, and I would walk through there with my mom, and we'd see like all the amazing like Christmas decorations, because they needed an enormous amount of like really big ones, because A, we're in Canada, and B, it's the biggest mall in the world. And so Michael, again, our producer, was able to get all that stuff donated and set it all up for this incredible festival at the end of the movie. And yeah, the gazebo shot, every time I've seen that scene a couple of times now, and every time I think about how we were running back to a waiting SUV that was pumping heat, and it was like hard to walk. We were so exhausted. And yeah, there's a lot of pride that comes with watching that, though.
Three weeks. It actually got, I mean, we ended right, luckily right on the button when it came to COVID and all of that stuff, and we were able to get it finished, or in the can, so to speak, right when they were starting to shut everything down. So I think we ended up having to shorten it by a couple of days to make that deadline, but I want to say it was just under 3 weeks, so about 13 days of shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember really specifically because there was so much talk going into the last week of whether or not we were gonna have to shorten it. And when it was all said and done, we didn't shorten it actually at all. We shot 15 full days, and then the very last day we were shooting was the last day that we could have shot in Alberta, Edmonton, because the next day they shut everything down. And so there was so many things along this movie that were oddly serendipitous and super fortuitous, and yeah, it was kind of wild. But no, we did 3 weeks.
Thank you for watching The Sarah Scoop Show. Head to sarahscoop.com for more.